how do you know if someone is as mature as they appear? Is your grandpa Frank really as wise as he says? Although we often associate maturity with age, there's also emotional maturity to consider as well. You don't need to be in your 70s to be emotionally mature or wise. Some people can be well into their adult life, yet they lack the maturity of some of their younger counterparts. So how can you tell if someone is really mature and wise? Here are 7 signs someone is truly mature. Number 1, their choices are based off their character instead of their feelings. Do you let your emotions get the best of you? Does this often result in poor decisions? Those who are emotionally mature base most of their choices on their character as opposed to their feelings. They take time to assess the situation and evaluate. They have a set of values they live by. And it's these values that take the lead rather than a sudden negative emotion. It's their character that ends up controlling their emotions. They simply need to remember who they are and what they stand for to calm down any biased feelings that can contribute to poor decision-making. Number 2, they are patient. Patience is a virtue. While it certainly is for the wise. If you're mature, you realize that large goals often take a good amount of time and effort to achieve. Those who are mature will work hard to get what they want, but they also understand that they can't get it done at the drop of a hat. Good things often take time, and because of their patience, they often realize that everyone else has their own troubles and conflicts to deal with as well. This leads to them being patient with others as well. Number 3, they keep long-term commitments and promises. A promise is a promise, and it'd be wise to see through with the promises you make. When a mature person makes a commitment, they keep it. When feelings of motivation are no longer present, they don't let that stop them. They push through any feelings of frustration or boredom because they know the reward awaits at the finish line. Gratification comes later, but it's well worth it to them. Number 4, they actively listen more and talk less. People value those who actively listen in a conversation, those who engage back with them and respond with thoughtful ideas and add value to the conversation. They don't just focus on what their response will be and when they'll get a chance to share it. Instead, they take into account the other individual's points and use them to give a thoughtful response. This makes for much more interesting discussions that lead to understanding each other's opinions. Mature individuals also realize that there's a lot to learn from others. Choosing to observe others and listen to what they have to say gives them a greater opportunity to learn from them, determine their view, and then give a thoughtful response. Number 5, they don't need attention and possess a sense of humility. Mature people are humble and don't often seek attention to themselves. They realize that they've learned from others and can learn more from them as well. They don't put themselves above others simply because they have succeeded. They instead treat everyone with kindness and openness. A mature person can still be confident and proud of their achievements, but they don't need praise from others to be happy with themselves. Being proud of themselves is enough. Number 6, they're open-minded. Time to open your mind. If you're mature, you're often open-minded and respectful of contrasting opinions. Those who are mature realize they shouldn't judge others and that each individual has different circumstances. There are different struggles each of us go through, different experiences that lead us to our views. Mature individuals realize this. They also realize there's a lot to learn in life, so it's best to keep an open mind. As wise as they may be, they don't have all the answers. And number 7, they're self-aware and know when to hold themselves accountable. Self-awareness is key in emotional maturity. A wise person knows that they need to step back from any heated situation and assess their feelings. They realize each action has a consequence. Knowing this, they don't just think about the consequences for themselves, but for others too. Their words have weight. Their decisions can lead down so many different paths. Being aware of this prevents them from making poor choices. When they do make a bad decision, they have enough self-awareness and humility to admit they're wrong. They hold themselves accountable, adjust their behaviors, and take responsibility for their actions. It's the mature thing to do. So how mature do you think you are? Do you think before you act? Are you patient? How many promises do you keep? Feel free to show your self-awareness and take a bit of accountability in the comments down below. It's the wise thing to do, and we're here to listen. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click the like button and share it with a friend. And as always, thanks so much for watching. Here's to another year of making psychology more fathomable and accessible. So let's begin. Isn't finding love and happiness often considered the pinnacle of life goals? And don't we all hold personal relationships as the key to achieving this goal? In fact, research supports that the most important determinant for a person's happiness is the quality of their relationships. We spend years trying to figure out where our hearts belong, and when we finally know the answer, we sometimes can't help but run away in fear. To be emotionally vulnerable with someone isn't for the faint of heart. Having a fear of intimacy is perfectly understandable, especially if you have a history of failed relationships and emotionally distant or absentee parents. It leads us to pushing away those we love most, often without meaning to. We constantly doubt the stability and security of our relationships. We waste so much time stewing in indecision that we miss our chance to be with them. With that said, here are 7 telltale signs you may be suffering from a fear of intimacy. 1. You're afraid of abandonment. Oftentimes, a fear of intimacy stems from a deep-seated and unresolved fear of abandonment. Those who grew up with neglectful parents and have an anxious avoidant attachment style are most likely to develop this fear. With this fear at the back of your mind, you learn to adopt a positive view of yourself, but a negative view of others, thinking the only person I can ever truly count on is myself. You think that it's always better to leave before you're the one who's left behind, and so you're reluctant to let people in and struggle with long-term commitment. 2. You're fiercely independent. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with being independent. Of course, it's good to be competent, knowledgeable, and self-sufficient, but you should also know how to ask for help when you need it. If you're too independent, you will try to do everything on your own because you take pride in never needing anything from anyone. In a lot of ways, it's what makes you feel in control of your own life and enables you to keep your emotional distance from people by never allowing yourself to depend on them or need them. You are feeding your fear of intimacy by making sure you never have to succumb to having others fulfill your needs. Your independence gives you freedom by keeping everyone at arm's length. 3. You always fall for the wrong ones. Do you have a history of falling in love with all the wrong guys or girls? Do you find yourself attracted to people who are emotionally unavailable or distant in some way, or maybe abusive, rude, or unfaithful to you? Picking unhealthy partners is a common characteristic seen in those who have a fear of intimacy, because it allows them to avoid getting too close to a person, or ever having a stable or secure future with them. You might find damaged, aloof, or complicated people more appealing because you want to avoid intimacy, and thus end up rejecting the ones who are actually more sincere to commit. 4. You tend to be flaky. Being flaky means to be inconsistent in our behavior towards others. So when people get too close to you, your first instinct is to push people away. Do you sometimes ghost your friends after spending a lot of quality time with them? Have you ever opened up to your partner about something deep and personal, but then stopped calling and talking to them for a few days? These behaviors show that having an honest emotional connection with someone scares you. So you try to keep your distance and stop yourself from getting too attached to them. Since they have come too close for your comfort, you run in the opposite direction to nullify any budding connection and to keep yourself from getting hurt. 5. You're a perfectionist. It's normal to want the people you love to think well of you, but you shouldn't try to show them the perfect version of yourself only all the time. If you're a perfectionist, chances are you'll have a hard time letting others see your shortcomings and your flaws. You're afraid you'll be rejected because of them, or maybe you don't even want to admit to yourself that you have them. You tend to intimidate people by always putting up a perfect front, making others reluctant to approach you as they find it hard to match your level. This facade keeps everyone at bay, but it's important that you learn how to be open and vulnerable with the people you care about, and that you trust them enough to let them see your flaws. 6. You're a workaholic. When you're practically married to your job, it barely leaves room in your life for any kind of relationship whatsoever. Maybe you're pouring so much of yourself into your job because you want to deflect your focus away from your personal issues and avoid having to confront them. You use your job and how you're too busy doing it as an excuse for not being able to form or maintain healthy and lasting relationships. People who are afraid of intimacy often throw themselves into their work to avoid having to commit to something serious. So if you're a workaholic, ask yourself if this is the reason why. 7. You sabotage your relationships. It goes without saying, of course, that people who are afraid of intimacy will often sabotage their own relationships. This is why having this kind of fear can be so destructive, because it robs you of the opportunity to have happy, stable, and functional relationships. You may be doing it unknowingly, by failing to communicate well or not expressing your feelings to others, or you might be deliberately doing things you know could hurt or upset the ones you love. In fact, studies show that people who cheat on their partners often do so because they have a fear of intimacy. While it's easy to see why being afraid of intimacy and commitment can keep us from being happy, it's harder to change when we're already so set in our ways. Painful memories, messy breakups, and unhappy early childhood experiences can leave us with a lot of emotional baggage. We'll likely have to work through for years to come, but it doesn't always have to be that way. There's no need to let these negative experiences define you and keep haunting you for the rest of your life. With diligence and support, you have the power to overcome your fear of intimacy and commit to a healthy, emotionally fulfilling relationship. The first step, however, is to simply recognize the signs. Did you find yourself nodding along to any of these signs? If so, are you ready to commit to breaking the vicious cycle now that you realize how truly damaging it could be? Did these points clarify the reasons for your fear? Do let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to share with those who might benefit from this video. As always, thanks so much for watching.